The United Kingdom is a mystical and ancient land where legendary kings and queens, highwaymen, outlaws, witches and pirates once stalked. Tales of gods, heroes, and marvels, hinting at a mythology once as relevant to the races which settled the islands as the Greek and Roman gods were to the classical world. The Norse gods which peopled the Anglo-Saxon past survive in Beowulf, Cuchulainn, Taliesin and the magician Merlin take shape from Celtic mythology. Thomas Theodore Maryland was known as cryptonaturalist, fringe zoologist, and xenoarchaeologist. Creatures and artifacts thought to be nothing more than myth. It is a mystery that challenges our understanding of biology, chemistry, and the very laws of physics. But this is no fairy tale, for he was a scientist, and empirical evidence and rational thought hold sway here. In 1960 in London, at the time of clearing the site for construction of a new residential neighbourhood, the old long-abandoned mansion belonging to Thomas Theodore Merlin was sent for demolition. As they entered the basement of the building, they found thousands of mysterious wooden boxes sealed tightly. Amazed by this unusual discovery, the workers began to open the boxes in search of some valuable performance. Instead of finding the treasure of a pirate, the boxes contained bodies of strange creatures, the kind that was only heard in myths and tales of folklore. It was christened Maryland Cryptid Collection. Symbiotic hominids, of the hominid species that evolved alongside the lineage of Homo sapien, few survived for long. As the migrations of proto-humans moved into the Middle East and Europe, the indigenous populations were raped, murdered and eaten to extinction, alongside hundreds of mammalian species. Yet despite this, two groups of nocturnal hominid known as Homo lupus and Homo vampirus did survive. They appeared to stem from the lineage of Australopithecus, our shared ancestor, perhaps most likely, Neanderthal, a hominid cousin which coexisted for a short time with Homo erectus. As the swathes of humans began to envelope the continent, most Neanderthal were wiped out, yet it appears that at some point a group encountered a symbiotic virus. This virus may have originated in another species of mammal or indeed in the water supply. Either way, the effect was remarkable. It did not kill the host, yet developed two distinct subgroups of hominid, perhaps those infected separated into tribes that no longer interacted, but the virus instigated changes at a genetic level, unique to each party. What was identical in both groups were the development of anatomical traits equipped to feed the virus's constant dependency on iron and protein, this the only negative aspect of the infection. Over the next 150,000 years, the virus wove itself into the very essence of each species, thus distinct subspecies grew. Both appeared to have thrived. Like their human counterparts, during the Ice Ages they hunted, and their diets were predominantly meat. Homo lupus were nomadic, yet for a time settled in Mesopotamia, and are directly responsible for the birth of agriculture, whilst Homo vampirus traveled east to what would become Mongolia, where they became subterranean. Both species developed culture quickly, surpassing humans yet remaining somewhat secretive. Homo lupus was hunted to near extinction by warring human parties wishing to settle in the Middle East. Their nomadic lifestyle took them north, where pockets survived. Vampirus, closed off from the threat of humans within the Altai Mountains, flourished, and became the most successful civilization on Earth. Cryptozoology tends to be split into two areas of study. The first deals with animals which are classified from fossil evidence, but are currently considered extinct. The classic example of this type is the thylacine. The creature officially died out in the early 20th century, though sightings of the Australian animal still occur today. Out-of-place creatures are also categorized under this heading, such as the hundreds of alien big cat sightings reported in the UK each year. The second area of research examines creatures for which no tangible evidence exists, but are carried down the ages in the form of folk stories and myths, or the witness reports are too fantastic to be readily accepted. The following list is a collection of both types of report. In addition to his unusual hobby of collecting remains of unlisted species, he is also remembered for his tremendous useful life. According to accounts, at 80 years of age looked like a 40-year-old look, which probably attracted more attention than his unusual collection of rare specimens. During his lifetime, Theodore embarked on a trip to the USA where he would make his unusual collection known to a wider audience. He received much attention at first, but as his cryptids were so disconcerting and the worldview so narrow, it was labeled as a fraud and was soon marginalized by other cryptozoologists and naturalists. While in this endeavor, he befriended several prominent mathematicians and biologists who were intrigued by his work, and also approved some of his concepts in fringe and chemistry physics. Theodore's journals together with the specimens contained esoteric notions of quantum mechanics, a concept that had not yet been established at the time of writing. Because of this, he was also strengthened by his friends to publish a study on the possibility of time travel. As with most paradigmatic individuals, Theodore would soon fall into dismay after he was accused of theft by another collector of rare specimens. His reputation was strange, so he returned to vagueness. From this moment on, he was no longer heard of in the scientific community until 1942 when a man pretending to be Marilyn had donated a building to an orphanage in London with the sole desire not to open the basement. The man did not seem to be over 45, so he was supposed to be a relative of Theodore. This was the last time anyone heard from him. By modern standards, man could not have been the same person born in 1782, because that would make him 160 years old, and while looking at a quarter of that number. However, his stationery mentions an artifact called alabast, which had unusual anti-aging properties. Since it had not been discovered along with his collection, we can assume that Theodore never let him out of his reach. Is it possible that he discovered the elixir of youth? And what about his mysterious legacy? While some specimens are clearly the product of human ingenuity, there are others who intrigue even the most skeptical of minds. Sketches and illustrations reveal a thorough analysis of the supposed mythical creatures, but also points to a possible model that served as the basis for creation. Whatever the case, the peculiar collection will surely raise numerous questions. It cannot be dismissed as a forgery, or pure artistic creation. Therefore, if it proves authentic, it will challenge numerous notions imposed by our modern culture. Is it possible that such legendary creatures existed in a not-so-distant past? If so, why would we hide such an alternative reality?